Hi, everyone. This episode is brought to you by the Lumbery in Cape Elizabeth, Maine. As we head into spring, Lumbery is your go-to source for Maine-based wood suppliers with beautiful cedar, perfect for outdoor projects. They have pre-made garden beds ready to go, or you can buy cedar to build your own beds or even a DIY sauna. Cedar is naturally rot-resistant, durable, and built to handle Maine weather. Lumbery also sells and builds thermary saunas, crafted with premium thermally modified wood for durability, performance, and that clean, modern Scandinavian look. Whether you're planting something new this spring or creating a space to unwind year-round, Lumbery has the materials and expertise to make your project a reality. Lumbery, Maine wood, built beautifully. Go check them out online or in person at their flagship store, 287 Ocean House Road, Cape Elizabeth, Maine. And feel free to use the promo code GOODWOOD for 10% off an online order. And now, back to the show. Hi, everyone. You may find this surprising, but although I'm a teacher, I don't tend to listen to many educational podcasts, especially the instructional ones, packed with topics like 10 strategies for better exit tickets or the latest trend-driven swings in pedagogy. No way, not for me. I'm far more drawn to education as a story, investigative, human-centered narratives that examine systemic failures and the use and misuse of power, often with real and sometimes dangerous consequences. The one exception I'd definitely like to mention and recommend to anyone who hasn't already listened is Sold a Story, created and hosted by Emily Hanford, which stands apart as a compelling, long-form investigative series exploring the science of reading, while also scrutinizing the deeply problematic and, at times, dare I say, fraudulent practices tied to Lucy Calkins and the Teachers College Workshop model of, quote, reading instruction. And beyond that, a few other education-related podcasts I've gravitated toward and would highly recommend if you haven't already given a listen include Grapevine, Southlake, Nice White Parents, and The Promise. Again, these focus more on broader themes like inequality, religion, race, and systemic injustice, and at times reflect conversations about what school really looks like from the inside. And while they all center education, they aren't about tips, trends, or curriculum. They're about the larger forces shaping schools and the experiences within them. Listening to these kinds of podcasts has helped shape the way I think about education, not just as a practice or through the lens of a teacher or a parent, but as a system influenced by people, politics, and power. And that's the space I keep coming back to. This intersection of education and the larger forces shaping it, the decisions, the tensions, the ripple effects. And that's exactly where Adults in the Room lives. And it's my podcast recommendation for you today. But listeners, please note, it's important to me that you know that this podcast series contains references to misconduct, including sexual misconduct involving minors, which some listeners may find distressing. Please take care of yourself while listening to this episode and to the series Adults in the Room. Okay. So before we get into it, I should say that I've worked really, really hard today to avoid any spoilers or give too much away. But I'm excited to share with you about Adults in the Room because it is so, so good. And for me, it all begins with the creator and host, Isolde Raftery, who immediately draws me in for two reasons. First, there's her voice, which at first is pretty slow and measured in its natural cadence for me, but it quickly settles into something that makes you lean in and listen closely in an unassuming, almost unexpected way. Second, Isolde is a first-hand upstander, whistleblower, an advocate, however you want to name it, which had me feeling loyal to her from the start. I don't know if it's middle child energy or being a woman, a mother, a teacher, maybe all of it, but I've always felt a strong pull toward people who choose to speak up for others. It's something I'm deeply passionate about and is something I try to carry into my own work and life. And speaking up or staying silent is what this podcast is all about. And the silence here is deafening. Adults in the Room is a story about a man who was a coach and a teacher and who abused his position of authority to engage in inappropriate relationships with minors, ultimately causing harm to children and teenagers. When these students spoke up, they were not believed, period. And if this feels harsh, well, it should. And like many things these days, what happened in the early 2000s at James A. Garfield High School can't be understood as just one man and one student, or one man and a few students. It was also the collective decision of so many others to look the other way, the gaslighting and the silence by those who were legally required to act. Over time, it becomes clear that this was something far more widespread, a pattern of harm to students within a large public school district and beyond. These failures had real and lasting consequences for the students, families, friends, and loved ones of everyone involved. And it's that kind of silence that makes Isolde's work as a journalist matter even more. How she uses both her voice and her reporting to confront the harm and injustice created in the absence of others speaking up. Because when she was a student journalist in high school and learned about the misconduct and abuse, she spoke up for her classmates, raising concerns and trying to get adults to listen. While her mother ultimately made a formal report, the system failed to act when it mattered most. Today, Isolde is an accomplished journalist and managing editor at KUOW, a Seattle news station, and has previously reported for outlets including the Seattle Times, The Atlantic, and NPR. What began with Isolde reporting on an incident at her own Seattle high school wasn't a story she could fully tell until she returned to it as an adult. And here we are. For what it's worth, I think I connect to Isolde and this show for a lot of reasons. For one, we're about the same age. We grew up and were in school around the same time, so I feel like I have a general sense of the world she was navigating as a kid. This show has me feeling nostalgic, and when I think back to my own high school years in the mid-90s, I honestly can't imagine having the maturity, bravery, and persistence it took to not only speak up, but to try to alert others to a predator hiding in plain sight, and ultimately not be heard. More than anything, it comes back to that same thread of advocacy. Isolde spoke up as a high schooler and endured years of backlash, torment, insults, gaslighting, and still held her ground. That through line is what makes this show so powerful. She's now using her voice to tell the truth, to center those who were silenced, and to revisit a story that so many people avoided or refused to confront. And in doing so, she doesn't just expose what happened. She helps bring to light the harm that was allowed to unfold, shaped by the decisions of those in power who failed to act when it mattered most. I have so much admiration for Isolde. She's also telling this story from the perspective of a student while I'm listening as a teacher, which adds another complicated layer, especially given that the show centers on a teacher's conduct, or more accurately, misconduct. In my 22 years of teaching, I've always considered myself a fierce advocate for my students. Every day, I try to support them not only in academics and their role as learners, but in developing as people, modeling respect, communication, hard work, and advocacy along the way. And admittedly, I've had moments of negativity directed my way over the years, but I try to ground myself in integrity and accountability. If I've caused harm, my responsibility is not only to repair it, but to learn from it moving forward. Of course, any accusation can be devastating to a person and their career, especially if it's false or unfounded. But that understanding does not diminish or override the truth of someone else's experience. For now, I strongly encourage you to go and listen to the podcast docuseries Adults in the Room. May we all find the courage to use our voices the way Isolde Raftery does. And just one more thing. Isolde, if you're listening, dare I suggest a potential second season? One that might take a closer look at the broader forces that shaped the man known as Tom Hudson? I'm curious to know, what were the patterns, pressures, or failures in his own life that went unexamined, and how did they intersect with the systems that allowed this to continue unchecked? If needed, I'm totally here to be of any help to you. Just kidding. Please, in a more serious light, if you or someone you know needs support, please call or text 988, which is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, available 24/7 for mental health crises, emotional distress, or suicidal thoughts. Text HOME, HOME, to 741-741, which is a crisis text line, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, text-based support with trained crisis counselors. Or the National Sexual Assault Hotline, RAINN, call 1-800-4673 or chat online at RAINN, RAINN.org to provide confidential support for survivors of sexual assault 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For more information about PodTalk, you can email me at apodtalk@gmail.com. That's apodtok@gmail.com, or follow our socials at pod.talk on Instagram. And of course, if you like the show, please give us a rating and a 5-star review, as it truly does help us get discovered. Don't forget to check out my other show, Freeport Local, a podcast series that celebrates all things Freeport, Maine. And of course, be sure to share Pod Talk with friends, family, coworkers, and anyone who loves a great podcast series. As always, I'm so grateful for your listenership. So have a great day and tune in again soon. Take care.